Welcome to the Wired to Hunt podcast. This week on the show, I'm joined by my longtime co-host, Dan Johnson, to discuss the epiphanies, the tactical changes, and the philosophical shifts that have occurred for the both of us as we have unexpectedly become middle-aged hunters. All right, welcome back to the Wired to Hunt podcast, brought to you by First Light and their Camo for Conservation initiative. A portion of every sale of our Spectre camo pattern, which is the whitetail pattern from First Light, goes back to support the National Deer Association. So great stuff. I appreciate First Light doing that. And today's podcast is a fun one. It's a different one. In some ways, it's like many others. In some ways, it's different, I guess. It's like many others because my guest coming up here soon is the one and only Dan Johnson. He co-hosted this podcast with me back when I started it It was either late 2013 or early 2014. We did many episodes together, shared a whole lot of laughs, a whole lot of stories and experiences. So it's always fun to bring Dan back on the show to catch up on our hunting lives and what's going on during our seasons or leading up to the season. So we're going to do a little bit of that. We're going to talk Iowa, our plans this year, some of that, catch up. But more importantly, we're going to talk about an epiphany that I had recently. And I'll explain this to Dan when he gets on, because I am going to surprise Dan with this topic. He doesn't know what he's getting into here. But I recently realized that I started Wired to Hunt back in 2008, and that is nearly 20 years ago. It's like 17 years ago, nearly 2 decades ago, I started this thing. When I started this thing, the tagline for Wired to Hunt was deer hunting for the next generation. And I recently realized that I am not the next generation anymore. I am nearly 40 years old. I am technically a middle-aged man now, a middle-aged hunter. What does that mean? What does that mean for, how I hunt, why I hunt, where I hunt, the many choices that go into my decisions about tactics? There's a lot of things we can unpack here. And I got to thinking that there is an interesting discussion to be had about these different stages of your hunting life. And where Dan and I are right now is in this kind of middle-aged hunter phase. It's weird to say. For a long time, I kind of looked at myself as like one of the young guns, one of the kids in this community of this newfangled podcast thing. But now here I am, not so much a kid anymore. What does that mean? What have I learned along the way? What has Dan learned along the way? How are our decisions changing? How is our approach to hunting changing? How are our goals and expectations around hunting changing? There's a lot here. And I imagine I'm not the only one who's going through this, because if you began this journey with me at some point, if you've been on this kind of roller coaster as Wired to Hunt has grown and changed over the years, maybe you too find yourself in a new stage as a hunter. So whether you're 18 years old and wondering what, is coming down the line, or maybe you're in your 30s or 40s and you're in this phase of life and in this phase of your journey as a hunter in which you're realizing you're not that young gun anymore. You've been around the block a bit. You've seen some stuff. You've done some stuff. Priorities might be changing. All of that is what Dan and I discussed today. I think it's a conversation worth having and maybe wrestling with yourself. It was at least healthy for me to do so. So I hope you guys enjoy this one. If it's relevant, I hope it inspires you to do a little bit of thinking and maybe have some chats like this with your own friends who are in a similar boat. So that's the plan for today. And without any further beating around the bush, let's get to my chat with Dan as we discuss the unexpected realization that we are now middle-aged hunters and what the heck that means. All right, here with me on the line is the one and only 10 fingers minus one, the man who's been by my side since the beginning, the OG, Mr. Daniel Johnson. Dan, welcome back to the show.
Thank you. It's crazy being called an OG because in the streets, OG means the original gangster. I don't know if I've ever been a gangster, but I consider myself original.
Oh, no, man. I remember you telling me some of your stories from college. I think the name fits. Man.
OG. Yeah.
How the heck are you?
I'm good, man. You?
I'm doing really good. It's that time of year where we're trying to pack in all sorts of fun summer activities with the family, but at the same time, I'm realizing that the approaching deadline for hunting season is quickly showing up. So I've got two levels of anxiety. One anxiety is like, okay, get as much great family time as possible. And then the other anxiety is like hunting season's coming closer, get working. So that's my world right now.
Yeah. I'm going to throw you under the bus instantly on this episode. And Love it. When we get on this little platform that we're on, and I'm like, hey, Mark, how's it going? He's just like, oh man, I'm doing okay. Just like a hint of depression in his voice. I'm like, oh my God. He's like, yeah, I'm out here in Idaho. And just like, oh God. No, like, I'm like, oh, you're in Idaho, dude? You're in Idaho? Oh, I'm just out here hiking beautiful mountain trails all day long. It's so hard doing what I'm doing right now. Now I'm over exaggerating just a little bit, but.
Well, I've only slept in my own bed once in the last 7 nights, Dan. The rest were on the ground. So life's pretty tough.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. Is it because an earthquake destroyed your home? No, it's because you chose to do that. You're living every man's wildest fantasy, Mark.
I'm not gonna argue that. Although I had an interesting side path I was thinking of taking that comment, but I won't. I will just say that I am fortunate. I got to do a 3 or 2 night backpacking trip with the kids over the weekend, and 3 or 4 more nights of camping before that, and that was pretty fun. So no complaints here. No complaints here.
My kids want to go backpacking. They want to go on some overnight stuff, and I think I'm going to be able to get in some of this stuff once baseball's over.
Yeah.
But like my oldest boy, he's like, when can we go sleep in your truck somewhere? And I'm like, trucks suck to sleep in, but I got a tent and I got some sleeping bags. We can go do something fun like that. So it's on it's on the agenda.
Good. It's so much fun. Yeah. And it's the simplicity of it, like how easy it is to keep the kids entertained when you're just like out at a campground or off in the nature backpacking. It's so nice compared to when you're home and you're, trying to keep them occupied. Go do this, go try this, do this thing. When you're out there, like you don't need to say a word. They just take off. Yeah.
Yep.
And that's pretty cool. So yeah, I'm doing the Idaho summer thing, fishing, camping, all that kind of stuff, which is good. But I want to do a couple things with you.
Okay.
Dan.
Yes.
I do want to hear a little bit about your summer whitetail prep so far, how things are looking for the summer, kind of catch up on all that. I did draw a tag this year for your home state, as you know.
I saw that.
So maybe we can talk a little bit about that. But then I have a surprise topic after that.
Oh boy.
Yeah. And it's something that's been on my mind recently. And I just want to see if it resonates with you at all and if you have any thoughts on it, because I feel like had a bit of a epiphany.
You have?
And yes.
Okay.
And frequently when I have epiphanies over the last 10 plus years, you've been good at either jumping onto that epiphany and riffing on it with me, or bringing me back down to earth and telling me I'm crazy.
Okay. All right. I'm excited about that. I'm a very blunt person at my age with the kids that I have. So it's just like my kids aren't getting the dad that is like, oh, I don't know, the very like, oh, you can do anything. You can do anything. And then I'm that dad's like, buddy, you're never going to dunk a basketball because your mom is 5'1", right? I'm not going to say it's never. Yeah, let's be realistic. I like to bring the truth followed by, but if you work hard enough,
I think that's a good way to do it.
Yeah, anything can happen.
I think that's a good way to do it. I feel like that's a great way to approach your hunting season, Dan, in most years.
Yeah.
You're probably not going to kill that booner you've had your eyes on for the last 4 years, but if
you show up, you might just get an opportunity.
Might just happen. So speaking of, what, it's July. It's that time of year where we're really starting to, think trail cameras or summer scouting's beginning, all that kind of stuff. Are you at a stage yet where you've been able to dive into that at home yet? No.
You're already regretting having me on as a guest today because you're like, hey, we're going to talk about summer prep. Dan, what's your summer prep? And I go, I have 0 trail cameras out. I've done 0 summer scouting. The last time I was in the woods was in March when I picked up a shed antler, and that's it.
Well, this is perfect for the surprise topic, by the way. You're segueing perfectly to what we're going to get to eventually. So this is because family, is that right? Just family life and all the other obligations?
Yeah, I mean, I see wrestling, 2 kids in baseball. One of them I coach, and then I go to my daughter's wrestling practices as well. And then on top of that, running a business and trying to manage that while creating content, while managing the business, while working from home with kids in the summertime, and then doing all the extra fun stuff with them that I'm afforded the opportunity to do because I work from home. And then at the same time, realizing that I don't have anything done. It's 8:00 at night, and then I work for 3 more hours. And then it's like, holy shit, what did I do with my day? Yeah. So
I feel you on that.
Yeah, it's in life mode right now. But once baseball's over in 2 weeks, then it's go time. So,
do you have like anything you're particularly excited about this year? Is there like a buck that made it through last year, or sheds you found, or a rumor you've heard of?
Yeah, so there's just a couple. 2 really. The first one is on this new farm that I have access to. I've been hunting it this will be my 4th year now hunting it. It's in a really good neighborhood. I had 2 deer last year that just disappeared, and I'm assuming the neighbors got them. That's what I'm assuming happened. The second thing on that property is we talked about power vacuums sometimes, and when a big mature buck is killed, what moves in to take its place. And so 2 big deer got killed, I'm assuming. And so what's going to move in? And so there was a really good 3/4-year-old that was about 150 last year. And he might have been 145-ish. And I decided to pass him. And so I'm excited to see what he kind of pops up into, if he's still around, or depending on what that power vacuum produces, what else could potentially move in. But the thing that I am thinking about the most right now in the world of whitetails is a buck that I have been following along with for the past, this will be year number 4, I believe. So year number 1 that I saw him, I'm assuming he was a 3-year-old. He just popped out of nowhere, and he was sitting at about this 140 class 10-pointer. The next year he explodes into like a Booner 10 with a kicker off of his one of his G2s. I'm almost positive I sent you pictures of him a handful of years ago.
Yeah.
And then last year he turned into a giant like 3x2, where I don't know if he was injured or what happened, but his one side was a brow and 2, like a main beam and a G2. And then the other side was the same thing, but with a big crab claw at the front end.
That's cool.
So I rattled him in this past year, and he was coming dead eye to me, but I also rattled in a horse that came into this is no joke, dude. This horse came in.
I remember this.
Horse came in to investigate the rattle. And so the buck was coming in. He saw the horse. So he stayed and flanked all the way around me, and then came not even downwind, just way far away from me, hit a scrape. I wheezed him back in, but he never came back in, and then he disappeared. And so he's run the same circuit now for the last 3 years. And if the guy that I share the property with didn't kill him, then I'm assuming that no one killed him.
Yeah.
And my guess is now we're looking at 3, 4, 5, 6, potentially a 7-year-old this year.
Wow.
And he has the potential to do something really awesome if he grows out of what he was last year back to what he was like a previous year, plus maybe a couple inches. I don't know. And so only trail cameras will tell me that story. But I know where he's going to be as soon as I get some trail cameras out over top of like a mineral site, he's going to be there. And so all I got to do is wait.
Well, even if he just goes funky again, I've always thought like a really big bodied, old, funky buck like that would be such a cool deer to hunt.
Oh yeah.
I had a deer 2 seasons ago that was kind of like that. It was a new property, so I didn't know him for years and years, but he showed up and kind of very similar, like 3 points on one side, big fork on the other, huge, like Brahma bull body.
Yep.
You could tell like he was the guy.
Yep.
Just, funky antlers going on. And that was a cool deer to see a few times.
I'll tell you this, man, there's something about a no doubter mature buck. And I don't think a lot of people actually get the opportunity to see them because yes, there's a big jump in body size between 3 and 4. But when now you start talking about 5, 6, 7-year-old bucks, that body size, I don't care where you're at in the country, whether you're down in the Texas heat or up in northern Wisconsin, Canada, the body size jumps so much that you just know by glancing at the body shooter automatically. Yeah. And that's awesome to have encounters with those types of animals.
100% agree. That's the thing now that gets me the most excited. Mm-hmm. Just you see that huge, formidable body moving through the timber. Yep. They act different. They look different. They move different.
Patience are greater. Like they don't make mistakes very often. So I'm excited to see what this buck does, where he's traveling. If he sticks to the same kind of path that I did, the only difference is a little bit of crop rotation strategy that you kind of got to think about of where he's going to go. But outside of that, man, I think it's going to get good really quick this year.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
I've got, like I said, the Iowa tag myself, and my plan there is doing the opposite of what I did last time I was in Iowa, which we talked about, but this was, I haven't got a tag there in like 4 years or something like that. So it's been a while, but last time around I was there, I was just so focused on doing what everyone tries to do in Iowa, which is like, get the really big deer, the thing that everyone imagines with Iowa. And so I was like hunting my tail off nonstop, hour before daylight till all the way to the end of the dark, and didn't do anything with like our buddies there that lived there, and didn't do all the social stuff that all my other pals from Michigan were doing with my local buddies. And this time I'm not doing that. This time I'm embracing the hunting, like the camaraderie side of things. I'm going to come in sometimes and do lunch with the guys. Yeah. I'm going to stay out and go to dinner afterwards, have a good time. I'm going to enjoy the whole experience and not be so worried about killing an Iowa giant. I just want to see I just want to see the stuff. Like I want to see the show that Iowa can sometimes show you. I want to see the, bucks being bucks, hopefully see some mature bucks and, rattling actually maybe working, or decoying maybe actually working, or maybe see, some cool interactions between different deer and different bucks, stuff that, in Michigan is relatively rare to see, that I know I could see there in your neck of the woods. So I'm going to be less worried about tagging a giant and more just like having fun, experiencing it fully. And if I could tag a mature buck, whatever size, I'd be thrilled.
Yeah.
So that's my high level plan.
Yeah. I think, Mark, once you learn that deer do not move in the rut between 11 and 3 or 2 or 3 in the midday, just don't even hunt it. And then you can just kill in the morning and kill in the afternoon. That's just what I do, dude.
I know there's a lot of data, and people would tell you the middle of the day is a pretty good time during the rut. Yeah. And I know, like, I've seen it sometimes myself. Yeah. But it's also a good time to have fun with your friends and recuperate a little bit. So I'm starting to see your way of looking at things a little bit.
That just tells me you're getting old. That's all it tells me, is you're gaining age in your body.
So I think this is a perfect segue to what I want to ask you about, Dan, because I was thinking the other day that I started Wired to Hunt in 2008.
Yep.
So that was like 17 or 18 years ago.
Yep.
Almost 2 decades ago, I started Wired to Hunt. And when I started Wired to Hunt, the catchphrase, or like the tagline, was deer hunting for the next generation.
Right.
That was what Wired to Hunt was. And the other day I was thinking about that. And then I thought about the fact that was almost 20 years ago. And then I realized that I'm knocking on the door of 40 years old myself. And I realized I am not the next generation.
Not anymore.
I am a middle-aged hunter.
Yep.
And that was a little bit of a slap in the face and an epiphany. And I realized, whoa, I am not who I used to be, nor is what I make what I used to make.
Yep.
And that has a whole lot of like ramifications on my hunting, how I do it, why I do it, when I do it, all that kind of stuff. And so it got me thinking about all this kind of stuff and this idea of like being a middle-aged hunter. Or I think we've talked about back in the day, you know, there's these different stages of hunting. Like there's like kind of like a typical pathway that people kind of follow. Yeah. And I was kind of thinking about that. And all of it was making me feel really old. And so have you or did you ever have an epiphany, Dan, where you realized that you are now like a middle-aged hunter? You are not one of the kids anymore. You are not like the wild child on White Knuckle Productions saying silly things. Like you are an old man now in this hunting community that we reside in. Have you thought about that?
It's crazy because I still talk to the majority of the old timers, I guess you'd call them now. I'm not quite old timer material, but I think about it, dude. I can remember when I was first hunting hardcore. That would have been like when I was 26. 2006 is when I opened up my mobile hunting style and I went bananas. And I was at the time, I was working in part of my time was in a factory in my late 20s. The other part was I was a landscaper and maybe I bounced around between a couple jobs at that point. And deer hunting was my priority. So I was hunting like 40 days of a year, right? I was in every afternoon. I was trying to be in every morning. Every weekend was morning and afternoon. Sundays, same thing. Like I was in the woods all the time. And now I just envision me doing that makes me tired. And so I'm just like, nope. Like it's too hot. Okay, I'm not going to hunt. Oh, it's too windy. Okay, well, I'm not going to hunt. I have way different priorities now than I did 20 years ago. Yeah. Right? My priority now is family, is coaching, is like the thing that I realized going through on this middle-aged journey that I'm in right now, there's positive thoughts and there's negative thoughts that come with like going through your midlife crisis. Like, do you feel like you're in the midlife crisis mode right now?
I'm not in midlife crisis, but I'm in the, oh my gosh. So It doesn't feel like a crisis, but it feels like, holy shit, how did I get here? Like this went so fast.
Right.
So this is like the realization phase.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And I think I hit that a couple of years ago where I'm just like I just don't care as much as I used to. And I'm talking about like, I still get fired up about deer hunting. Now it's less about me going out and trying to kill a big buck and more about who I'm actually with that I care about. And if my boy, let's say it's late October, temp drop comes through and I'm like, dude, this is the best day. And my son goes, hey dad, can we go fishing? I'm going fishing, dude. Like I love everything so much. And as someone in our space, I think we're supposed to be really extremely fired up about it all the time, but that is for that younger generation to do. Now, for me, the focus is balance and expansion of what it means to be an outdoorsman. And my job right now, and what I mean expanding, is expanding my kids' passion for the outdoors through hunting and fishing. And then also me doing things that I normally don't get to do here in Iowa. And that would be like additional species, like really focusing on mule deer and elk and antelope as of right now. And then hopefully in a handful of years, I can expand into my dream hunts like moose and caribou and things like that. So it's just different ways of spending the time that I have. Yeah. Has changed.
So I've wrestled with all those exact same things,
Mhm.
and changing priorities and wanting to balance more with the family and the growing
Yep.
obligations and desires that you have on that side too. So all of that might take you out of the field or have you doing less of like the extreme stuff, right?
Mhm.
And so I've felt that desire sometimes. But then also on the flip side, I was talking with someone earlier this spring, and they brought up an interesting thing that they keep in mind a lot, and that I hadn't really thought about, but all of a sudden like hit me. They said like when it comes to some of these like extreme things or like the big lifeless trips or like the
Mhm.
more physically challenging things like going up and doing a mountain, blacktail hunt in Alaska or a caribou hunt in Alaska or an elk hunt in Colorado or whatever.
Yeah.
They said that, you know, if you have the physical ability and the resources to do it right now, you should feel obligated to do it because that might not be available in 10 years.
Right.
That might not be possible in 15 years. So if you've been given the grace of God to physically be able to do that right now,
Mhm.
to have that opportunity right now, it would almost be a disservice to your kids if you didn't do some of those things when you could and showcase that and have those experiences and bring those stories back. And, again, kind of getting to
Yeah.
you never know what's going to
Yeah.
come down the line. And, one day you're 40 and the next day you're 50 and you got a bad knee or
Yeah.
whatever it is. So I thought about that too.
Mhm.
Does that ever cross your mind?
Man, I'll be completely honest with you about where I'm at. Yes, I think about those things. But if you're asking me as an average Joe, right? And I consider myself an average Joe from maybe the amount of money that I make in a given year. And so if you're asking me to go do a once in a lifetime trip where I am spending 10 grand on like a big hunt, like, I don't know. And some of these hunts are not even close to 10 grand, but a big hunt like that. And I have to take money away from the family to do that because ultimately that's what I'm doing. And
Yeah.
maybe which would open up some different opportunities for them. Then I have to think like, what is more important at that point? I have to weigh some things. And I'm into the stage of my life where the teeter totter is always tilted towards my kids right now. Like literally, they are my favorite people to hang out with.
Yeah.
I mean, they fight all the time and they piss me off almost on a daily basis. But when we sit there and we go fishing or just hanging out, doing like throwing rocks in a river, like that is where I want to be right now. I
Yeah.
don't want to miss. Because what happens is you get these little Facebook memories that pop up, and it's you and your baby daughter, and you're holding her, and you're just like,
Yeah.
holy shit. I have 3 kids now and she's 12. Like I blinked and I have grown up kids now. And 7 is my youngest, but you know what I mean? They're not babies and toddlers anymore. And so I feel like I just want to stay with them and do this and then take care of my body so that long term, when they're out of the house or they don't want to be around dad anymore,
Yeah.
then I can go. And I can be
Yeah.
like, yeah, I'm 55 when I'm doing in 10 years. Let's say I'm 55 years old. Now I can focus on the checking the boxes. And yes, it might be more money then, but also I'm spending less money because I have 3 less kids in the house. So,
True.
like, I don't know. There's multiple ways to look at it, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I can't remember if I had talked about this like little statistic I discovered with you when we did our last kind of like raising outdoor kids podcast a year or two ago. But when I heard this, and I'll state it again just in case I didn't. The average American, supposedly, 80% of the time they get with their kids over the course of their entire life happens before their child is 18. So for most of us, we have between now and when our kid turns 18 to have experienced 80% of all the time we're going to get with them. Like when I heard that, it just like blew my mind and realized like, oh no, like so much of the life experience I'm going to have with this child is going to happen, right now and over the next 8 years or next 10 years. That just for some reason made it so much more concrete and so much more real the importance of what you just said. Like
Yep.
soak in every moment of these short years because they do go so fast. It gets so cliche. And if I'm like a 20, I don't think a 22-year-old is going to listen to this podcast today because of the title I'm going to put on it. but if for some reason a 22-year-old is very forward thinking decided to listen to this podcast, they're probably rolling their eyes about how cliche this is and yada yada yada, because that's exactly what I thought when I was 22.
Yep.
But it's all true. All the stuff they told us back then is true. It goes by so quick.
Yep.
It's a blink. I mean, I remember coming on the podcast. I was sitting in my truck next to the Yellowstone River, recording a podcast with you. I was sitting in the front seat. Computer was on like the center console. And I was like, Dan, I got to tell you something. We're having a kid.
Yeah.
And now my son is, approaching 8 years old.
Yeah.
And it seems like that was yesterday.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. Yep. And thank God for some of these memories, like the pictures and the Facebook memories that pop up and things like that. It does allow me to slow down and just be like, God, man. It's like you don't get, time only goes in one direction. And you have to, I just want to be there. I want to be there with them all the time for everything. And I say that with an asterisk because they got to go experience some stuff on their own at some point. But like for me, selfishly, I want to be there with them because dad is only cool right now. And here in, 5 years for my youngest, then dad's not as cool, right? My daughter, she's already branching out into this different life as a young girl. She's not even a woman yet, but she acts like it. And so now you see this, but she still wants to go turkey hunting with me and she wants to go deer hunting with me. And so as long as I have that, I am going to hang on to that as long as I possibly can. And I will sacrifice any once in a lifetime trip for that.
Yeah.
So
where I wanted to kind of spend the rest of our time was exploring this kind of thing, all the different ways that this like stage of our lives, like becoming a middle-aged hunter, how that impacts our hunting life, our choices, the way we look at things, the way we do things. And I think, one of the things for me is exactly what you've been talking about and that I've been talking about, which is like the people you're around matter so much more than the other things used to be. Like it used, back in 2014 when we started the podcast, you and I were just talking about this big buck and that big buck and this booner and all that. And what did we talk about when we're talking about our upcoming season? It was much more this time around, or who we're going to be around, and we have other hunting buddies, and experience versus antlers and inches, right?
Right.
I want to make sure I'm prioritizing more time, hunting with my dad or getting my sons with my dad. Those kinds of things matter so much more now.
Yep.
And I think, again, back to cliches, but you go like the standard stages that everyone talks about, right? There was like the stage when you're just getting started and you're trying to figure out, how do I get anything? How do I hunt at all? How do I kill anything? And then you figure it out and then you want to shoot a bunch of stuff. And then you then move to the next one. Like, okay, now I want to get a big one maybe, or a bigger one. And then you go like, I'm going to be like a trophy hunter. I want to only get like the big giant, the one single, whatever. And then you slowly start kind of coming down the bell curve, which is, I guess, where we are now, where it's much more about, hey, I want to be around people I care about, have, experiences that matter for bigger reasons than just a tag, antlers on the wall, whatever. And then I think what also I've been thinking a lot more about too, and this is maybe a slight transition, and maybe I'm not old enough to be thinking about this, but I am. I'm an old soul maybe. But already thinking about like legacy, like what am I passing on to the kids? What am I teaching the kids? What are my kids or people I'm around going to remember about how we did things, or stuff like that. Just thinking more about the future. Like I think kids force you to do this. Your view changes, like the aperture you looked at the world at. Like when it was just me, it was just like, well, what am I doing tomorrow, or next week, or next month? And now it's like I care about what's going to happen in 40 years. Yeah, I'm not going to be around probably, but I know my kids will be. And so you're thinking about like the future of hunting, or the future of deer, or the future of public lands so much more now. That's been a big thing for me lately.
Yeah. Let's table that public land talk for just a second while I explore this one. Like the outdoors to me is just a vessel, really, for the kids. Like my legacy, I I want to be like, I want my kids to tell their kids, or my grandkids to tell their kids, who I'll probably never meet, right? And just be like, dude, my grandpa was an awesome son of a gun, right? Or I want my kids to tell their kids, like the way that I talk about my grandparents, like, dude, I loved them. They were awesome. Like, my dad is a great guy. My mom is a big heart. She's very caring. Like, I want my kids to talk about to other people about me. Like, ultimately, that's really what it is. And it's like, never lose the memory of dad, or never lose the memory of grandpa, right?
Yeah.
And because that's true legacy. It's just that the outdoors is a delivery for people to be the best versions of themselves, so that legacies can be made at that point. And so that's where I spend a lot of time with my kids, is the fishing and the hunting and the outdoors and stuff. And even if it's just outside, right? Or just in the treehouse in the backyard, whatever it is, it's a place where the true me gets to come out, and the kids are able to see, like, dude, the outdoors is where it's at, man. My dad's so happy in the outdoors. I'm so happy in the outdoors. And once you like find a true happiness in this state of nature, whatever that's different for everybody, I really do think that that's where legacies are made, dude. And if you're able to accomplish some extra things, fighting for public land, or teaching someone who's maybe less fortunate than you, or doesn't have a dad, or something like that, to also hunt and fish, man, that's the cherry on top.
Heck yeah. And man, kind of expanding on something you brought up there, the outdoors is a vessel for many different things.
Yeah.
And it's also a tremendous training ground for life in so many ways. And so now as a father, I'm seeing like so many opportunities for passing on really important life lessons in this like microcosm of the world, which is the outdoors. So going back to where we started, we're backpacking this weekend, and I knew this was going to be a challenge. It was like our most challenging, outdoor expedition we've done with the two boys yet. They're 5 and 7. They've backpacked for a number of years now, but it's always been relatively, flat, not too long. We've carried most of the weight for them. This weekend, it was going to be a 3-day, 15-mile, 2,000 plus feet of elevation gain trip. And both the boys got new backpacks. So my 7-year-old has like a legit backpacking backpack that can carry some weight. My 5-year-old has a bigger day pack that he was going to carry some food and clothes and a camelback and stuff. So like they were going to be carrying more of the burden. So coming into it, I was like, hey, just so you know, this is going to be challenging. This is going to be tough. And so I was like mentally preparing them for like, this is going to be some type 2 fun. And we're going to work through it together, and it's going to be amazing. But we're going to come into this knowing like we're going to have to push through some hurdles. And what was so cool is like all of that absolutely happened. And at one point on the last day, first off, they did amazing throughout all of that. We get to the last day, and we've hiked 14 miles so far, and everything's wearing on the kids, and they're definitely exhausted. And I remember thinking to myself, like, you just got to keep like their mind on some other thing, right? So I brought this idea of the pain cave. Have you ever heard of the pain cave?
I have not.
It's like a thing in like the running world, or like the ultra marathon or long distance hiking, all that kind of stuff, like where you're, physically exerting yourself for hours and hours and hours, dozens and dozens of miles. And eventually you get to a point where you enter the pain cave, and you are just like, everything hurts. It's like where you're at your lowest point and you think you want to quit. And kind of one of the secrets to making it through the pain cave is not to like bemoan the pain cave. It's not to, feel sorry about yourself because you're in the pain cave. It's to like embrace it and recognize, all right, man, like we're here. This is the moment when you like prove your mettle. This is what you push through, and you can kind of like embrace it, talk some smack to it, work through it, whatever. And so I explained all this to the boys as we're hiking. And so I kind of, this is the idea of the pain cave. And so we might be in the pain cave right now, but what do we always talk about? Why do we do hard things? They make you stronger. They help you in the long run. You're going to grow from it. We're in the pain cave right now, but let's start talking smack to the pain cave. So my boys, as we're hiking down the trail, they're carrying heavy packs. They've been hiking 15 miles in the mountains. And my boys are, going back, hey, you know what, pain cave? You're not going to stop us because we're the Kenyans and we don't give up and we're going to keep on working. And so like my 5-year-old and 7-year-old are saying all this stuff. Like having fun with it, talking smack. They're as physically exhausted probably as they've ever been, but they learned a little something. And then by the time we finished the hike, they were having fun. They're like, "Oh man, that really works, Dad." And I just thought to myself, what a great thing for a
Lesson.
7-year-old, or great lesson, a great moment to realize how much stronger you are, how much more capable you are, how much more resilient you are. And I could never replicate that at home. I could never replicate that with reading them a story or anything they would get in school.
Yeah.
And so many things like in hunting or fishing, can do that kind of thing too.
Yeah.
Creating, like fostering those kinds of moments now are what matter so much more to me now, whether it is with my kids or, as you mentioned, introducing other people to these pursuits so that they can someday experience that.
Yep.
That's the stuff that I'm really more and more interested in.
How far are you going to take the pain cave on your kids? Like, are you going to be like, you're going to let them go with Clay on a black bear hunt where they're chasing bears into caves, and then have your son go in with a knife and try to kill a bear with a knife?
There's definitely a fine line you got to walk for sure.
maybe we'll ease into that.
Yes, we will ease into that.
Yeah.
But yeah, man. I mean, it's been such a wonderful thing for our family.
Yeah.
To be able to kind of, and when you see your kids grow like that, like you grow too.
Absolutely.
And your kids teach you so much about life in these moments. And so, as a middle-aged hunter now, I'm seeking out opportunities like that.
Yeah.
When I'm looking at my calendar for this coming year, it's much less about killing a target buck and much more about, okay, how do I maximize time with the kids and the family? How do I, if I'm doing something outside of that, how do I make sure it's like just a general experience that's really special, or a place that's really special? Because in the end, like the moment, like if you're targeting some big giant buck, the moments that you actually have with that big giant buck are like fleeting.
Yep.
You kill this big giant buck, you feel great for a couple minutes, and then you got to get this done. And then before you know it, the buck's cut up and in the freezer, and the antlers are at the taxidermist, and you're sitting there thinking, man, this thing I obsessed about for 12 months or whatever happened. Like, now what? And not saying that that's not still fun to pursue and cool to have tough goals. But I am realizing now, like, there's so much more than that.
Well, I think the other way to look at that is the amount of work it takes for those types of moments, right? Those moments are special because they are rare. And I don't mean just moments with big bucks and killing a deer. I'm talking about moments with the family, the true moments where you've worked all year round. Now it's time to go do something special with them. And whether that's a vacation or maybe just a weekend fishing trip or whatever it is, right? It's the moments like that are so special because they're rare. Because if you lived your life like that, you'd be extremely lucky and probably wealthy to be able to afford to do those types of things. But it's all the hard work that goes into the kill or the moment where you're like the other day. I'm going to try not to get emotional here, but this is something my oldest boy said to me. And he goes, we were fishing. We just got done fishing for the night. So it's getting dark. We're driving through the countryside, coming back from the pond to the house. And he goes, Dad, do you wish you were older or do you wish you were younger? And I said, buddy, I'm just happy that I'm this age right now. I'm happy. And he goes, Dad, I wish you were younger so I could spend more time with you. And I'm just like, holy shit. Right? Like, it's those types of things. And I'm just like blown away that my kid had the brain power to think of something like that, first and foremost. But then that also tells me that he loves me and that he loves doing these things with me. So when I get that dopamine hit of my kid telling me that, I'm going to do that shit as much as I possibly can with him. You know what I mean? And so I don't know, man. That's kind of where I'm at.
That's the good stuff.
That's the good stuff.
That is the good stuff.
Yeah.
So being a middle-aged hunter, I think has changed our goals. I think it's changed the way we plan our year. I think it's changed how we spend our time.
Yep.
I'm curious though, kind of shifting gears a little bit here. Has it changed how you hunt more like tactically or philosophically? Has your approach to hunting changed? If you were to look at, Dan Johnson at 26, 28, 30, when you were balls to the wall versus Dan Johnson, middle-aged, old man hunter that we are today, how has that affect you strategically the most, do you think?
I'll say this, and I don't mean this to be arrogant, but because I've made I make mistakes every year, just like everybody does. But if I find you and you're a big buck, dude, like I am taking all of my experience, I'm taking all of my knowledge, and I'm pointing it in one direction, and that's your vitals, right? And so I would say that I am more dangerous now as a hunter than I was 10 years ago, when I was 35, and even more now than I was at 25, and I was able to have as much freedom because knowledge is power, experience is power, and I'm just doubling down on all of the things that have worked for me throughout the course of my life. And I'm telling you right now, like I don't want to say like I'm not the best, because I don't know how you quantify that, but I'm really good at getting in close to big deer. And that has taken me several years to get to that point. But now with an attitude where, okay, I'm weighing being here in this tree stand against what all the things that we just talked about. So I have to be much more intentional in my drive and my decision making on where I'm going to be, how I'm going to get that, because I'm hunting less now than I ever have before. And so now when I go into kill mode, it's kill mode. It's blinders on. I'm going in to the best stands. I'm not waiting around. I'm using all of the knowledge I have on terrain features, access routes, wind direction, and I'm putting it to use immediately now, as opposed to, all those years ago.
What's like the most high impact lever you have to allow you to do that? Like you mentioned a bunch of different things, a bunch of different types of knowledge or approaches that allow you to be more effective with less time. But like, what's that highest leverage point? What's the thing that, because you now understand like more than you did 15, 20 years ago, that allows you to do that? Could you put your finger on the most important of those shifts?
I think that and you hear all the older guys talk about it, dude, we give them too much credit, right? They are in there for a reason. And unless you jump out of a bush and scare the shit out of them and they run to the next county, they're not going to go. They're not disappearing, right? They're going to go somewhere else that's relatively close. And I will go back to a quote that Jim Shockey, he might have even been on this podcast several years ago, where he talks about a body of water like a pond as
Did he rake this pond?
He did not rake the pond. He did not rake the pond.
Sorry to derail you there, but
oh man, that was a good episode. Anyway,
speaking of great Wired to Hunt episodes.
But Jim Shockey goes, "Hey, I got this pond, and when I throw a big rock into this pond, it creates ripples, and sometimes the ripples get big and they crash the shore, and then over time those ripples go away, and the pond comes back to calm again, right?" Yep. And so that has kind of stuck with me about pressure. If you are a small pebble going into a farm or a body of water, and you just have you have your access routes planned out, you have your exit routes planned out, you know what you're doing on the wind directions, the thermals, how deer behave in certain types of year, like how they traverse the landscape, all that stuff. And you know these things, then your impact on that farm is way less, and you can hunt specific stand locations way more times than you can if you just walk straight line through a field, right through a bedding area to get to a stand that's in a good terrain feature. Like it has clicked for me so long ago now that I'm able to know, like, all right, well, it's cloudy outside, but I have a south wind. It's cloudy outside. So my thermals aren't going to rise. They're going to sink because of the clouds. So I don't want to be in this stand. I want to be in this stand. And so now all of these things that I've learned throughout the years from a strategic standpoint, I think honestly what it comes down to, Mark, is the decision-making process is so much faster now than it was. Then I just skip to I do way less thinking about it, and I skip to the yes or no. Yes, I'm going to hunt this. No, I'm not going to hunt this. Yes, I am going to hunt today. No, I'm not going to hunt today. And when it becomes binary, then it's so much easier to think and make decisions on where you hunt and what strategies you should or should not implement.
What comes to mind as you're saying that, and something that I think is true for me too, is that old line when it comes to like carpentry or something is, measure twice, cut once.
Yep.
There's something to be said about, a lot of this is hunting smarter, not necessarily harder. I used to take the brute force approach, and now it's much more of this, we have so much experience and data points and, past experiences to look back on that allow you to be, sometimes, don't give the deer too much credit, punch right in there, be aggressive, but you're doing it in a smart way. And then other times just knowing, hey, this isn't the time to do it. I could hunt 7 days straight and just make things worse. Maybe I should just hunt 4 days or 3 days on the right moments or in the right places or in the right ways or whatever it is. So much more of that is how I approach hunting now too.
100%.
And then all of that then balancing back to what we talked about, because we're focusing on other things than just hunting. This is not only making us more effective as hunters, but it's making us better husbands or fathers or people. Which is a big part of all that too. Now, the flip side of all that, a lot of what you said resonates with me, but I've also had another kind of epiphany as I've gotten up there in age, which is I've also discovered a newfound humility, maybe, or I'm alleviating expectations I place on myself a little bit, because I got to a point maybe in my early 30s where I thought like I know what I'm doing. Like I've got this shit figured out. I know what I should be doing. I know the right move. I know what to do, when to do it, where to be. And then the deer don't cooperate, or something crazy happens, or the neighbor does something, and then I would be beating myself up or upset about it or stressing about it. And what I've kind of gotten to now is realizing that you can do everything right all the time, and it still doesn't happen. Right? Because there's so many outside variables. These are wild animals. We're in wild places or not so wild places with variables like people and all sorts of crazy things. So I've also gotten to a point now where I hunt smarter, maybe not harder. I have more confidence, but at the same time, I'm also much more quick or much faster to forgive myself or to say, oh well, than I used to be. Because I've kind of gotten to the point now where I haven't seen it all, but I've seen a lot. I've seen things go sideways in so many different ways that I've had to learn to, like, this is, some like the cheesy self-help stuff these days. They talk about like self-compassion. I'm not talking about self-compassion, but whatever the hunting version of that would be, just like a little bit of like cutting yourself a little bit of slack, because like stuff just goes wrong sometimes too. And I've found that sometimes mentally as a hunter is really important, is to give yourself a get out of jail free card every once in a while, because like stuff's not always going to go the way you write it up. Stuff's not always they're not going to follow the script. Most of the time they don't follow the script. 99% of the time, even for the absolute single best hunter in the world, whoever that is, 99% of the time it's not going right for them, right?
Yeah.
So why should it be different for us?
Yeah. Here's what I think the stuff that I think about is, or a big realization that I've kind of had is, you're not in control. And when you're talking with Mother Nature, you're never in control.
Yeah.
Right. You can do all of these things, like our friends who manage thousands of acres and plant the food plots and do the hinge cutting, and they basically are growing deer on their property. Then you start getting closer to this where you are in control. And sometimes it works. Most of the time it works, but there's still some times where it doesn't work. But for me, knowing that I'm not in control is part of the allure of what what makes hunting so awesome, because you go into an environment that you don't live in, right? That you haven't, like for me, I did some hinge cutting this year for the first time ever. I don't have any food plots planted. And so when I go into an environment like that, it's me versus them. So there is a little bit of this challenge where I need to beat them. I need to get within 30 yards or so of them. 20 yards would be awesome, and get as close to them as humanly possible, and play a game. It's a game. But when after the game is over, whether you win or lose, you can't go home and pout about it. You just get back out there the next time and you learn from whatever it is you did. Like I'm way past, like, why didn't this deer come in? Why? Oh my, what happened? Well, he's probably with the doe, dude. Like he's probably eating acorns and laying on his fat belly somewhere. Like there are so many things that we are not in control of. And because we're greedy humans, we want to be in control of everything.
Yeah.
And like, this is nature, dude. We're not. And so like, it's the hardest thing to give up.
Yeah, I think that's like a thing that I have always struggled with because of my like innate personality traits. Mm-hmm. But I think the more I lean into like embracing that very thing that you just mentioned, embracing the fact that most nights it's not going to go the way you want it to go.
Yeah.
And most hunts aren't going to end the way you want it to. But it all goes back to something we've talked about for years and years, Dan. But I feel like every year we're relearning it in some way. It's embracing the process, embracing the journey, and being less worried about the end outcome. Like I can never remind myself of that enough. And I feel like I'm slowly getting there. But that's like one of the most important things. And like, as I'm reaching this new stage, like that's becoming ever more clear that, again, 99% of the time you spend as a hunter is in the process. It's not actually in that final amazing moment.
Yeah.
And so that kind of brings back to another thing that I have found has become more and more important for me at this middle-aged stage, which is that the how, or the way I do it, or the how I do it is more important than having done it or like having filled a tag or killed.
Yeah.
So I'm much more interested now in, not saying I wouldn't, sometimes you just get a gift. Like day one, a big deer shows up on a trip and you get it and it's awesome. It's cool.
Yeah.
But like, I'm much more interested in going on a trip that is going to involve me like doing something in a specific way that's really cool. Like I want to go to this place because I'm going to have to float this river and hunt deer along the way. Or I know I'm going to camp out on this grassy bluff for 7 days and get to glass and get to watch deer from a long distance and get to spot and stalk or whatever the thing is. Or I'm more interested in getting deer close. Like my archery journey has been an example of this. Like, I used to be like, I want more opportunities. I want to be able to shoot farther. I want to get as many chances at a big buck as I possibly could. And that led to, bad outcomes or less than ideal outcomes and yada, yada, yada. It's led to me now where I'm like, man, I want to get close to animals. I want to have as few bad things happen as possible. So I've actually had my range shrink every year because I would rather have a few great experiences, perfect shots at 30 yards and in, and have great views and see cool things happen that I don't get a shot at versus flinging arrows at a distance and on a wish and a prayer and then having horrible weeks or days because of it. Or I want to bow hunt more than I want to do like 700 yard long distance gunshots or whatever it is. Like my decisions around like the gear I use and the ways I hunt or the where I hunt, all of that is becoming more important than like how many deer I kill a year.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm in a little bit different, more of a different boat. Like I really do feel that the number of deer I kill is what I quantify success as now. In a weird way though, because I was talking to this with another guy a while ago, and I go, what's badass is opening up your freezer door and having it be filled with animals that you shot with a bow and arrow that feed your family. So I'm not talking about antlers at all at this point. I'm talking about shooting a doe this fall for one reason only, and that's to turn her into breakfast sausage because my kids love breakfast sausage, right?
I'm with you on that.
Yeah. And so I am looking for a little bit of quantity at this point because filling tags is awesome. right? But there's also the other side of me that wants to be that calculated guy who's like, all right, big buck time, right? Big buck time. But I think it's how you handle the big buck approach and when things go wrong that tell you where you're at. Because for me, I had this deer show up, or the two deer that we talked about at the beginning of the episode that didn't show up. They just disappeared. Then I had this other deer show up. It was the biggest buck on the farm at the time, right? And because of trail cameras, I got to everything moving around from the tree stand the last 4 days. Finally shows up and I pass him. Because at this point, it's not about the antlers anymore. It's about something else, right? And I didn't necessarily pass him because he was young. I didn't pass him. I mean, he would have been maybe the top 3 or 4 deer that I've ever shot from a score standpoint. That didn't matter to me. It was just the fact that I didn't feel it was the right time for that buck to die. For me, anyway. And I was looking for something different. And I can't tell you what it is. It's just, I wasn't ready. And that deer got a pass because of that. And so that deer walked. Who knows if he's alive today or someone else shot him? I don't know. But I wasn't in the mood for that particular buck at that particular time. And so I don't know. That's a very hard thing to describe. Passing deer, not because of age, not because of antler size, because he had a decent body and he did have a decent rack. And if it was an out-of-state hunt, I definitely would have shot him. But at that point in Iowa, it was a no-go for me.
Dude, it goes back. It all comes back to what a wise man once said a long time ago now. He's an old man now, but once long ago, he was sitting in a tree.
I know exactly what you're going to say, you son of a bitch.
He said, that buck made me go, oh. And so I had to shoot.
Hey, there's a state park where I live, and it's got some fancy quote by, Aldo Leopold.
Aldo Leopold.
Yeah.
Leopold.
And it's like this beautiful quote. And then there's this statue of me with this like mangled face and mangled hand. It's like, pass him because he didn't make me go, it's just like the most like behemoth thing to like
just
for a
caveman.
Yeah, just caveman. So I'm glad you brought that up though.
Oh yeah. We'll never forget. But it's true, right? I mean, it comes, I feel the exact same way. Number one, on the love and have meat in the freezer. Yeah, for sure. Love hunting does and making sure you got a full freezer. But then when it comes to like what you're going to do with your buck tags, I feel much, much less. I think there was a phase of my life where I felt a certain pressure, like outside pressure, like, oh man, you shouldn't pass that buck. That's like all your buddies would be giving you a hard time. Like, you got to shoot that buck. Or you felt like you should be passing other bucks because you should be trying to shoot a big buck because everybody else was, or whatever it was.
Yep.
And I've gotten to the point finally that I just don't care anymore. And that when it comes down to it, it's got to be the right moment and decision and thing for you. And no one else is going to understand that. Nobody else will be going through the same things as you or want the same experience that you do. But removing all outside expectations, removing all outside opinions from that decision has really helped me just enjoy those, experiences and decisions more. Like I had a similar thing last year where, on one of the places that I hunt, I was after 2 bucks, and like those were the 2 oldest bucks. Those are the bucks that I want to get after. And then they disappeared. And then this new buck showed up in late October, I guess it was. And he was like a really nice buck. In most years, I probably would have targeted him. I was like kind of on the fence. Is he fully mature? Is he not fully mature? But man, he was a nice deer. And I just kind of felt like people would probably think I'm crazy not to try to kill this deer in Michigan, but he's just not the one I'm after right now. And I just didn't have the drive to go chase that deer, even though like really nice buck, but I wanted to hold out to see if one of these other deer would show up eventually. And I knew I'd feel bad that if I shot this deer because I knew I should shoot that deer, I would feel guilty about that forever. Like I'd feel like that would like be doing like that deer a disservice. I'd be doing like myself a disservice. So yeah, I think a lot of this comes down to just we're doing things for different reasons now. We're more comfortable in our own skin and our decisions and our values and the whys and hows of what we do. in a certain way, that's not in a certain way, in a lot of ways, like that's pretty freeing. The more I think you remove other people from your hunting decisions and how you enjoy it, I think the better, because that's hard to do these days with like our internet world. I think that's one of the biggest things that as an old middle-aged man speaking to the next generation, which is not me anymore. That's like one of the biggest things I got to believe that these kids are growing up with now is like everything is media. Everything is broadcast to the world. Everything is looking for likes and clicks and DMs and whatevers. But the more you can remove yourself from that, I think the better. And I think we've both probably learned that the hard way because we've both gone through that ourselves. Yeah. And now in this new phase, hopefully we're kind of finding a more sustainable middle ground.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I hate social media. It sucks that you got to, like, I just have to be on it every once in a while and do it. And I don't know.
It's amazing though, like how, like when I was gone for the last 6-7 days and I wasn't able to check in. It's amazing like how much bandwidth that opens up in your mind when you just never are thinking about that, and you never feel like the instinctual, like you just pull up your phone and pull up Instagram just without even thinking about it, just happens. And then all of a sudden you're looking at some stupid thing you don't care about at all.
100%.
When that is not a possibility at all, it is so freeing, like rejuvenating for your mind and body. So that's another thing that I'm not good at still. I've been preaching it for years. I try to do it, but I'm never as good as I should be. But man, keeping the phone tucked away when you're hunting. The more I can keep that thing away and not get sucked into the phone when you're hunting, the better to enjoy enjoying the experience, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I forgot my phone in the truck this past year. In the first like 30 minutes of the hunt, after I got set up and I was sitting and just kind of chilling, I was like, oh my God, this sucks. I need my phone. I got to check emails. I got to do this. But then like after the addiction part of it wore off, it was awesome. I was relaxed. I was watching birds. I was just kind of remembering what it was like to go back to a time before cell phones and just sitting in a tree for hours with nothing other than a bottle of water or some snacks or something like that. And that's it, dude. And it's like, imagine a time where you don't know what time it is. Like, remember going hunting? I can remember going hunting when I first started hunting. There was no time unless I wore a watch. There's no time. And so you're sitting there, sun's come up and you're like, oh my God, I've been here forever. And you get back to the truck, it's like 8:00. Or you're like, God, like I'm getting hungry. It can't be 8:00 yet. And then you get back to the truck and it's 11. Right. Yeah. And so when you lose track of time, that's when you really, in my opinion, you kind of like experience, like the experience is purified and you just, I don't know, but you don't get that anymore because you're like, I'm in at this time and I'm out at this time, or I got to be here because you know when the wind is going to shift, and then you're not actually experiencing the wind shift. You're preparing for the wind shift, and it's just everything's different than what it used to be.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the truth. Yeah. I think so much of what we talked about has come back to like fully embracing the here, the now, the people, the place, and worrying less and less about all the stuff that's not in your control, right?
Yeah.
And that's, ultimately not that important.
Yep.
So, I think that might be a good place to wrap it up, Dan. What's new? What's new in your world with content, with podcasts, with projects? What should folks know about? Where can they listen? Where can they connect with you?
Yeah, same place as always, man. I would say that the best place to look for content is the Sportsman's Empire. And that's just not my stuff, but that's the network that we've created over here with like whether you live in the Northeast or you hunt the West, everything kind of in between, we have a podcast for you. Like whether it's hound hunting, whether it's fishing, whether it's turkey hunting, so forth and so on. I mean, we cover a little bit of everything, and we have some really good podcast hosts, and that's where I would send everybody is the Sportsman's Empire, and you can have your pick of what you want to listen to.
What is one episode of the Nine Finger Chronicles that you would send people to listen to if they haven't heard in recent weeks or months? What's like one favorite of yours that they should go listen to right now?
Okay, so this is a great talking point, right? So I do have to tell you that every time I have Tony Peterson on the podcast, he cheap shots you, dude.
I believe it.
He throws some jabs at you, okay? And so
I 100% believe it.
Yeah, and so I feel like on this podcast, or maybe you just come on my podcast and you talk shit on Tony Peterson for a whole hour, I would allow it just because he takes advantage of your kindness, I feel like. And
you might be right.
So any episode with Tony Peterson's a good one, but at the same time, you probably shouldn't listen to those because he takes a jab at you every once in a while.
Oh, my feelings hurt. Yeah, I love your idea. We talked about this over text. We just need to do it now. We need to have a podcast that's nothing but talking smack about Tony and uncovering all the skeletons in his closet for the rest of the world.
Yep.
So let's just make that happen.
Expose him for exactly what he is. And I don't know what he is, but he likes heavy metal music. Like have you talked to Tony about the kind of music that he likes?
Oh yeah, he likes
dark.
Yeah.
Dark.
What's that?
Tool?
It starts with T. Tool. Yes, he loves Tool. Yes. Loves Tool.
Tool.
Yep. Yeah, I mean he's got like a dark brooding mind.
Yeah. I'll say this, Tony's a great guy, but I would not be surprised if I see him on an episode of Dateline where the FBI is like, hey, we found 17 bodies under this dude's house. He's been collecting them for like 10 years. And he takes it to that. But I just would be like, I can see that. I can see that.
Yeah. You know, he's... there's a lot under the surface there, Dan. There's a lot under the surface.
Exactly. So,
well, hey, man, this has been fun.
Yep.
Glad we could do it. I appreciate you. And let's do it again soon.
Absolutely. Mark, kill a big buck this year.
You too. All right, and that's going to do it for us today. I appreciate you joining me and Dan as we kind of ramble and pontificate and self-examine what this new stage of our hunting life is all about, what we've learned, and what it means for the future. So thank you for being here. I appreciate you being a part of this community. And if you've been with us since the beginning, if you have been here since 2008, God bless you. Thank you for being on this ride. If you've been tuning into the podcast since we started in 13 or 14, thank you. We appreciate your support so much. I appreciate your attention, your time, and being a part of this community. So thank you. And until next time, stay wired to hunt.